So welcome everybody. I think what we'll do is we'll do a round of intros the way we usually do, because part of the reason why we're here is networking. So it's important that you know who's here and that you can reach out to everybody here anytime. That's important that you know that that's what this group is for, and it's fun to be able to do that as well. So Julie, I'm going to pick you first. Why don't you say hello and tell us who you are, where you are, what you'd like to get out of our group?
For sure. My name is Julie Steffler. I am out of St. Catharines. I'm a fresh grad from the Masters of Professional Kinesiology program at Brock. Currently doing some online personal training with a company called Fitness Solutions Plus that I was chatting with Angela a bit about this morning. And yeah, I used to wrestle for Brock, still do, kind of,
Oh,
not really
nice.
with the pandemic. Yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Awesome, awesome. Well, we're going to have the owner, Igor Klibanov, with us from Fitness Solutions Plus next week, and he's going to be talking about his training program for cardiovascular diseases and other autoimmune diseases. So he's going to highlight some of the courses and some of the work that he's done in those areas. And nifty free book offer for everybody. It's kind of fun. So you'll see him coming up to be on our little production here next week.
Nice.
That'll
He's a
be
good talker.
yeah, he is. Yeah, he is. Christiane, hello. You want to say hi and introduce yourself?
Sure. So yeah, my name's Christiane. I did the Masters of Professional Kin at U of T. I've been a practicing kin for probably about, I think, 3 or 4 years now. And I currently work in a long-term care home, but I have experience working in clinics and independent care or independent senior living as well.
Neat, neat. Mark, over to you.
Where's unmute? I'm Mark. I'm also one of you guys. Kid. I've been a kinesiologist for 22 years now. This is my 22nd year.
Oh,
Yeah,
congratulations.
I'm also a registered massage therapist. I've been doing that for 16 years now, something like that.
I never asked you what degree you did first.
I did my kin degree at York. When did I graduate? I graduated from that in 1999. And then I went back to school. I went to massage school like 5 years after that. Because I was just like, well, there's a whole story behind it. And it has nothing to do about wanting more education and anything else. Completely.
Access to extended healthcare benefits, maybe?
To be honest, do you want to know the quick and dirty of the story?
I don't know if I
I
know
was
this.
engaged. I was engaged and my engagement went to shit. And then I was drunk for probably about 9 or 10 months. And then I was in Florida. I was in Miami with my buddy who was enabling my drunkenness. And then he's a nice guy. He said I was in a drunken stupor. He's like, okay, I understand what you're doing, but you gotta stop this. So what are you gonna do when you go back? And this was over the Christmas holiday. This was over like New Year's. And in a drunken stupor, I was like, I'm gonna go where I can meet a lot of girls. I'm going to massage school. And that was it. No joke. And then when I came back, I jumped on my dial-up. I found the first massage school. I'm like, let me go. And that's all she wrote.
And Amanda and 2 lovely kids and yada yada. Look at you guys. That's pretty cool.
Yeah.
Nicely done. Nicely done. I didn't know that part of the backstory. That's great. Jillian, hello. You can pop on your camera or not. You can say hello or not, but we wanted to say hi. We see you.
Hello.
Hi. Whereabouts are you and what's your kin background?
I am Jillian. I'm from St. Thomas, so just south of London. And I've been a kin for a couple of years now.
Oh. I attended an Olympic weightlifting competition in St. Thomas. They have a very
Nice.
They have a very big weightlifting club there. And I used to coach Olympic weightlifting because I just look like an Olympic weightlifter. No one suspects anything. And I used to do the doping tests for competitions for about a year. So that was kind of, I know it's kind of a random thing that no one ever knows about me, but I love Olympic weightlifting.
Were you the person that had to follow the athlete around?
Yes, I was. Yes, I was.
You had to follow the athletes around when they competition?
I did.
That's fun.
That's fun.
I've had to be the athlete a couple times. It's great.
Oh,
It's
have
fun
you?
time.
Yeah. 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 Trying to both
Yeah.
fit in the bathroom stall. Yeah. It's nice.
Oh yeah.
I love that. I love that world. It was so interesting to see young kids lifting and then all the senior lifters. It was great. I had a good time.
I never was exposed to weightlifting like full real deal until I did Pan Am, because I was at the Oshawa Center and I was stationed there for weightlifting, and it was just
cool.
freaking amazed. I was like, unbelievable. And then just talking to some of the guys, like I would have been shocked. I was shocked at the injuries, because I would have thought knees, backs. Nope, they're like elbow dislocations, the number one injury. I was like, oh, well, it makes sense, but that's not what I would have put first.
Yeah. I loved it. I had like this girl crush on this tiny redhead. She had gorgeous curls, long curls. She was like 5'0", criminal lawyer, and weightlifting was her thing. I was like, oh my gosh, you are incredible. And she would like win everything. She just total deadpan face, walk up, lift, walk away, toss the weights down, win. And it was amazing. Anyway, yeah. So I used to train at U of T, and we got in trouble because we used to drop the weights on top of the lecture hall that was underneath, and we kept breaking the platforms because they would never buy real platforms. So we would just drop the weights, and all of a sudden the platform cracked and the professors and the students got angry, and we got brand new weightlifting platforms. So it worked. That was fun. Hey, Catherine, we're just introducing ourselves and telling like weird backstories of our lives. So welcome. You probably don't have a backstory yet, which is perfectly fine. We can invent one for you, but welcome. Do you want to introduce yourself and tell us where you're coming from and what you're up to?
Sure. Hi, everyone. My name's Catherine. I'm a registered kinesiologist in Sarnia, Ontario, and I just work part-time at a physio clinic. I help out with an arthritis program, and I do the front desk a little bit. So
nice. Nice. And Catherine just landed on her feet really recently. New grad, Arkin exam, check. New job, check.
Yeah, found the place nicely for sure. So
well done, really well done. So we are just going to chat a little bit tonight about employment, consulting, compensation, benefits, vacation pay, all the little things, continuing education plans, all the little things you can negotiate into your employment agreement. And we can just dive as deeply as you want. Mark does a great course on this. He's got a lot of information in the background. We've got one that we are pulling together some information from the college and some information from one of our mentorship program to give people kind of a one-day rundown on this is what the profession is and here's how you navigate those first steps off of the diving board. And I'm really, really pleased that kins are reaching out to other kins to say, can you help me? Because we're struggling with getting paid very close to minimum wage with huge skill sets. You really do have huge skill sets and you may not realize what they are yet. And that's part of the problem is, I think, kind of taking that inventory to say, here's what I'm really good at, and going to an employer to say, here's how I can boost your bottom line. Here are all the services that you may not have entertained that we can add to your service list. Or I could support your other healthcare pros by adding these services to the existing treatment plans that you already have running. So I think part of it is understanding what you can do as a kin, and it's a lot bigger than what you can't do as a kin. And then also figuring out, what do you ask for when you're sitting in front of the guy or the woman who says, so what are your salary expectations? And you just kind of look like a deer in headlights going, I have no idea. What would you like to pay me, right? That uncomfortable conversation. So maybe what we could talk about first is, what do you think a kinesiologist should be earning in that first tender 3 years of getting out there and getting started? Because it's a time of exploration and trying to figure out what skills you can monetize, really. So do you have any ideas of maybe what friends are being paid or what employers are offering that you think are reasonable in that first few years? Because it might be different than what you're hearing me parrot and what other people are saying. Any
It
thoughts?
depends on like the industry and also where you live, because that will greatly impact your pay rate.
Sure. So what do you mean by industry?
Well, if you're working in a hospital or long-term care home or independent or in a clinic, just kind of depends on like kind of who's paying, if it's government, if it's private insurance, if it's people paying out of pocket, that's going to make a huge difference.
It could, but it doesn't need to. And I think that's part of my point, is that I feel, my opinion is that people are coming to an employment environment and they're sort of wondering what they can ask for, because they do perceive it might be different working for a large long-term care facility, a large franchised or a large owned rehabilitation center, or private clients, or an insurer, or WSIB. So my point is that shouldn't vary. You may get paid differently in Toronto, in London, in Ottawa than you might in, let's say, possibly Sarnia, possibly maybe St. Thomas, maybe Sudbury. But I don't think it should vary that much, because your skills are your skills, and your employer is probably making the same money, whether they are working with clients in Peterborough or in Windsor. I don't think it varies that much. So I think there's a perception which is helping the employer, because the perception is the kin is young. If I only offer this range, then they will probably accept something in that range. I can use the fact that, well, this is Havelock, Ontario. This is Hamilton. This isn't Toronto or Ottawa. So, they let you draw the conclusion. And they say, well, you're not in ergonomics and you're not in occupational health and safety. This is a starting job for someone who works in the clinical field. So be careful about the assumptions you have too, I think, about what you think employers have and how deep their pockets are. I've been on both sides.
Yeah. I just wanted to share, I've had a lot, because I'm in the job hunting process right now. I haven't quite landed a job yet. In an kin role, I think I've had about 6 or 7 interviews. A lot of them have been with CBIs and life marks and like those big companies, but a couple of them have been with the more like privatized clinics. And the pay ranges that I'm given in the interviews are anywhere from $16.50 to $22.50 an hour. And yeah, shaking his head over there. And it like, because like when in the first couple interviews that I got, I already had my online personal training job, and I had been a CrossFit coach for a little while, and actually for like over a year. So in those jobs, I had never got paid less than $20 an hour. So usually when they ask you that question, what do you think is a fair compensation? I say, well, I've made $20 an hour as a personal trainer. I'm expecting or hoping for at least that much. And some of the people from the CBI and the LifeMark companies, they just look at me like, okay, and like we continue with the conversation. But yeah, after our conversation this morning and like trying to
sorry, not sorry.
No, yes, sorry, not sorry. Thank you very much for speaking your mind. I appreciate it very much. I don't know how to go about it sometimes, because like you said, like I am a graduate from a master's and an undergrad program, and sometimes I don't always know my own scope of practice. Like I know what I'm capable of as an exercise instructor, and I know what I'm capable of as a personal trainer. But like I was in a clinic setting through my master's for 8 months, and I know what I was capable of there, and they really liked me, but they were gonna hire me And then the pandemic happens, and now they can't because of finances. So now I'm just like in this job hunting phase, waiting to hear. But that's just what I wanted to share.
So weird. It's so weird because okay, when you take a look at those clinical jobs, for example, if you even compare them to like physios and chiros that work on an hourly, you're not going to find like for example, most chiros, if they're working hourly, they don't get paid more than 30-35 bucks an hour, right? Or a physio tops that's getting paid hourly is like 40-45, and that's really really pushing it. And really we're right up there, right next to them. We're regulated healthcare professionals. Our scope of practice is massive. Like even when you look at our scope of practice next to physiotherapy, there's stuff that's in our scope that's not in theirs. Like they can't do nutritional counseling. We can. Like there's a whole bunch of things that is a massive overlap. And then we have this other piece that goes well beyond. And the problem when you're looking for employment in those places is because we are not really associated. There's not a lot of extended healthcare coverage for kinesiologists, right? And that's the biggest problem. Everyone's got physio coverage. Everyone's got chiro coverage. So a lot of these people, they will work on a split because it's nice and easy. The clinic doesn't lose anything by paying a physio a split, because everyone's got physio coverage. This would be my suggestion that I just thought of right now. In those scenarios, I would approach those places, those clinics, and say, I will work on a split. Forget paying me hourly. Because if you can display your value to somebody and charge $100 for it, and the clinic is going to give you 70% of that, then that's gold. And you can display your value quite easily. I mean, if the fitness industry, which you're in, people pay out of pocket for it because they see the value in that. They see the value in having you as their trainer. There ain't no reason why you can't do the same thing in a clinical setting. You just need to sell that employer of the idea of, hey, let's work on a split. Forget hourly. I'm going to come in here and I'm going to hustle and I'm going to see people. I'm going to work on my own time. In other words, I'm going to be an independent contractor here. You just give me access to the client list and let me make my phone calls. Let me do my emails. Let me do that kind of stuff. Let me bring people in for free if I need to, and display my value, and let me charge what I want, and we'll work a split. I would probably even try it like that. Maybe that might not work for the life marks and the chains, but that would definitely work better off in like a smaller clinic.
So when you say split, do you mean like you make you charge the client X amount and then you give your person 30% and you keep 70? Is that what you mean by a split?
You got it. So it's a fee sharing agreement, right? Whatever we decide we're going to charge for this type of service, this is what you'll take and this is what I'll take. And then the more work you do with that, you're going to take a higher percentage, right? If they're not even, because like I was talking to Jamie about this, Jamie Glassman, and I was trying to tell her, like, this is a scenario working in types of clinics like this that don't work well for kins because there's not coverage for kins. So no clinic is going to pay you a shit ton of money because there's no guarantee they're going to get it back on you. Do you see what I'm saying? So they're doing all of their billing for you under physio or something else. So that means they still got to pay out the physio. And then they got to pay out you on top of that. There's no value to having you there other than you can bring something to the table for the patients and clients. But from a money standpoint on their end, why would I even have you, right? So you need to almost take it upon yourself to say, I'm going to bring the value to this clinic. I'm going to show you what we can do here. I'm going to show your patients and clients what we can do with them with me as a kin. And I guarantee you, after I do this with your people, they will be happy to pay out of pocket the same way they're happy to pay for $300 pairs of shoes. And they're happy to pay for this. And they're happy to pay for that. And they're happy to pay for their life coach because everyone's got one and no one has coverage for that.
Completely agree. You could bring group classes. You could bring new kinds of assessment. You could bring nutritional counseling. There's so many things you could bring into a clinical environment that I promise you, they've never thought of before. So what if you collected all the back pain patients and you collected all the diabetics and you collected everyone with 2 or more comorbidities, and you said, okay, right, I've got an inflammation class, I've got a pain class, I have got an improve your function and better your life class, because you've got the weekend life coach certification. So you can do all these things. And what you need to be able to do is be creative and say, I'll toss you 30%. And you don't have to do a thing. You don't have to do a thing. I'm under the banner of your clinic. So I am gaining access to your client list. We're going to send them an introductory email. I'm going to be starting to send communication to them regularly. I think it's a great idea, a really, really good idea. And then you've got your own business, so you can do all kinds of other things. But then you've got this this clinical group, and then you can farm yourself out to other clinics to say, look how much I boosted the revenue of this clinic. Would you like me to do the same thing for yours? Well, I've got this package that I sell. It's 5 classes or 6 classes, and it comes with workbooks and videos and all kinds of downloadable things. And I will be able to improve your clinical practice. And sorry, he's telling me it's time for bed a little early here. It's usually 10 after 9. He arrives on my desk. So this is what I think would really, really be helpful. And it you know, kins have to be scrappy, right? We have to be entrepreneurial. It's the only way that we are going to survive, because as Mark said, the physios and the clinic owners are not going into their pockets to pay kins. It's not going to happen. So I did a split once for 8 years with a physio group that I didn't care for the physio owner. We clashed like I do with many people, but the clinical team I loved, and I worked with them for 8 years, and we had an 80-20 split for 8 years, and it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun, and I worked with a lot of those clients privately outside of the clinic too. So it was good, and this way you can do all kinds of stuff on your own on the side. It's not that 40 hours a week where you're a little bit tied down. So that's what I would recommend. And I think that you could probably develop a little side hustle and test it out in different places. So you could work full time for someone, because you need to make sure you can get your bills paid. But once you've got your bills paid, then have a little fun and see what you can do. That's where it gets really fun. Because like Mark said, when you need money, you just pull the cash register button and it comes in, because you've already got these things on the shelf. So you're like, what should I do today? Okay, let's do this one. And you start just developing different things that you just test. And you get better and better at testing it out. And I think that's the biggest problem we have, is that we don't push up against our full scope of practice, because we're allowing other people to tell us where the guardrails are. And I don't think it's a good idea at all.
So how would you, with this like split that you have both had experience with, like how do you, like it's a good idea, and it like just listening to both of you makes me inspired to try and start it or try and think a thought process through, but like what is the first step that you take with that? Like other than finding a clinic that you're like, okay, I'm an awesome human, hire me, I'll do this, see what happens. Like what is your global or local thought process, or like what do you even start with?
I would say a Google Doc,
Yeah,
a good cup of coffee or a strong drink. And I would say just brainstorm and say, what are your skills? If you had the ability to do anything,
right,
and time just flies. Like I was sitting here working on one of our courses on the weekend, on what was it, Friday night? Don't even ask. 5 hours went by. 5 hours. And I didn't really, it was 5 o'clock and I sat down, and then my mate comes downstairs and he said, are you coming to bed tonight? I was like, what's that? It's 11:06. I've been here for 5 hours, 6 hours. I didn't even realize it. That's how you know what you love to do. So you just write a list of all the things that you would love to do. And it doesn't matter if it's exactly kin related. You write the list and then you say, okay, are there similarities here? And you start grouping them together. And you're like, wait a minute, there's kind of this thing for diabetics coming out here. Or I really like working for older adults who have knee pain. Or I've had an interesting conversation with a kin who does this, or a doctor who does that, or Mark who does this, and you think, okay, I think there's something here. And then you might say, I'm going to start off by talking about it for 40 minutes. and put together a little webinar about my experience.
Hmm.
And then you market it through the Connected Kinesiologist group and you're like, guys, I've got this webinar. Can you just come and listen to it, please, and tell me what you think? I need feedback because I need to start shopping it. And you get all our
Okay.
opinions and all our feedback. And then you say, okay, all right, here I go. I'm going to go and start selling this webinar to clinical groups. And then on the back end of the webinar, you sell a group class or something like that.
Cool.
That's the kind of thing I poke around at is a webinar. Well, I do sometimes a poll in the group and then I say, okay, there's interest. So then we develop a webinar and we say, okay, what did you think? And then we say, okay, we have enough interest. We're going to go and develop a course. Okay, there's enough interest. Let's do something else or something bigger or different. So you just test it in small stages. Mhm. I would suggest developing something that's really close to a personal story that you have so that you can relate. So a family member, a friend, yourself, something that you've gone through that people can identify with.
Mhm.
And then you could easily put together a short webinar, maybe with some sort of an easy checklist or download or something like that. One of a friend of mine did a webinar about transitioning family members to long-term care centers, Christiane. Because there's so many family members needing help to help loved ones make that transition and for they themselves to get their heads around, oh my gosh, this person's moving out of my home into a center and I now have to drive to visit them every day. So they actually just said, here are all the things that you need to think about when you're transferring someone to a long-term care center. So it could be anything that you like. So something with your wrestling, something with your experience in your MPK program. And you just keep testing and watch the reactions and then tweaking and then test it again. Yeah, no, it's fun. So that's one scenario where you decide on either, in that case, a free webinar because you're just looking for opinions, or you're like, you know, there's got a lot of value here. I'm going to put a dollar value to it, which I prefer you do because I think people should pay for knowledge, especially when you've gone to a lot of trouble to put together knowledge. And then I think that what you might want to do from there is think about putting together, in this case right now, an online group program where you can connect with people from anywhere in the world and talk with them about your favorite topic. So that would be the one scenario where you could bring a product then to anyone, physician's office, clinical practice. Psychotherapists are a group that are looking for kins.
Really?
Yeah. Exercise therapy for people who have mental health challenges, which is everybody.
Literally everyone with mental health.
Right. Right. So thinking about things that are slightly outside where you normally would go, but psychotherapists are a new regulated profession. They could probably really benefit with some help. Naturopaths, nutritionists. So naturopaths have a really good exercise knowledge. They are amazing musculoskeletal testers and fascial testers. And I was really, really impressed to see what they can do. But they don't have a lot of time, like other professionals we know, to do the exercise therapy as part of their session. So there's so many groups that could benefit from a plug-in kin program. And there's no risk to them because no money is coming out of their pocket to pay you. So that's the split. That's the fee sharing agreement. And you could step into the model. So you could start off with maybe like a 60-40 and then hit target numbers and it moves to 70-30 and hit target numbers and it moves to 80-20. So their revenue stays the same, but you're starting to take a bigger chunk of all the registrants that come into the course. I've done a flat fee too. I've done, like, back in the day, it was like $500 a month and I could work as many hours as I wanted to have access to the clinic for $500 a month. It's great. It's perfect. I had access to all the people walking by the gym on the way to the treatment rooms. They're like, oh, what are you doing in there? It's great advertising. So that worked. And you could say, all right, your budget is $20 an hour. I'll take that. But I want to scale that and I want to get to 35 or I want to get to 45. And here's how it's going to happen. So I'm going to demonstrate my value to you, but we are going to have an agreement such that in 3 months, in 6 months, in 9 months, that's going to move up so that within the year, I'm going to be exactly where I want to be. But we're going to date a little bit and I'm going to show you what I can do for you. So I see your budget, but I'm going to just dump your budget on its head really fast by showing you what I can deliver. There's no risk to either of you then. Just make sure you have low bills for the first year. So you could do that kind of a step compensation. You can do commission based as well. So you could sell particular services that they have that are underperforming. Maybe they've got services that sit on the shelf and they need some help to move. Maybe they need some help with social media, or they need some help with just creating some buzz or some tools that they can give to their existing clients or patients that will kind of bump awareness of that program. And you're like, okay, then I want X% of commission from that. I want 70% of that. Wasn't performing for you before. So then you're making 30%. But if I'm doing the work, I want 70% of what you're making. So you could do that. I've done that before. I've done that with braces, with taping, with what other things? Oh, an underperforming exercise class. That was fun. And yeah.
That's fair.
So there's lots of ways that just people haven't thought of compensation strategies because they're just a little bit unorthodox and a little different. So it doesn't mean they're not acceptable. It just means no one's really tested it before. And if you present it in a way that there's really no risk, you're accepting all the risk, but you're going to want a big chunk of the reward because you know it's going to work out. It's going to be great.
True.
So
wheels turning.
What's that?
I said there's lots of wheels turning.
There's lots of that. So what happens when you get that part in the conversation when they ask you, well, what are you looking for? What kind of compensation are you looking for?
I hate that question personally.
Oh, you should like bring it on. Let's go. It's fun.
I know it's fun, and then you just get that, like the couple times that I've even said, like, I think like at least $20 an hour, and they just look at you like you're not worth that. Like that's literally the look that they give you, and it's like, what? I don't know.
That's your interpretation of their look.
That's true.
I'll just point that out.
Yeah.
But
okay.
also, one of the things to remember is they're searching, right? They want to figure out where are you looking? So the first person that says something.
Yeah. Ask them, what do you think a regulated healthcare professional like myself should get paid in a scenario like this? What do you think a regulated healthcare professional, much like yourself, should get paid in this role, Mr. Physio?
Exactly. What's your budget, right? What's your budget? And first of all, never be the first one to name a number.
Okay.
It's what's your budget? Oh, that's interesting. How did you come by that number? Well, I can offer you so many services. I'd like to just continue this conversation a little bit where, what would you charge for my service? Just keep them going. And you need to ask them what their budget is. You know, what are they looking to pay you? And you need to be the person going, let me think about
Yeah, you almost want to treat the interview like, it's an equal part here. Like,
Yeah.
it's not just I'm looking for a job. It's I'm interviewing you to see, is this a match for where I want to display my services and offer the stuff that I offer that you don't have here. So you sell me on this place. Yeah.
Absolutely. Convince me this is where I want to work for the next however many years. Yeah. And I think that's a challenge. And I think that role playing that conversation is really important so that you have just a list of comebacks and you're like, oh, I'll use number 3. Yeah, number 2 will work in this situation. Number 1, here we go again. What's your budget? And you're like, all right, here we are. Let's play. And you have these answers that you're very, very comfortable talking about. And you have scenarios that you'd like to present, which all of a sudden you will get their wheels turning and they'll be like, I've never thought of that. That's so clever. Tell me more about your idea. So you don't want the compensation part of the conversation to be that awkward stop that everyone's dreading at the end of the interview. The other tip we mention is don't talk about money in the first meeting. If they are worried about their budget, they're not looking for your skills. So what you would suggest is say, well, actually, I'd like to delve a little deeper into the role that I'd actually be filling here. Can you tell me a little bit more? And you just dodge it. You're not ready to talk about it because you don't know enough about whether this is the position for you. Like Mark said, you're interviewing the employer. Are we a good fit? If we're a good fit for values and for goals and for vision, then we can talk about money. But it's too early to talk about money when they just run through the list of duties and give you the 2-second tour.
I never thought of it that way. Because like a lot of people, a lot of places even have that, like they will they'll screen you before they talk about like more details, like just to see if they're like, okay, this is a real human who has education, we'll put her to the next like round, you know. But even like there's one clinic that I interviewed for that had they had 4 rounds of interviews. So they did like a screen with you, like one of the physios did a screen with you, then you talk to the owner, and that's like as far as I made it, because like he told me at the end of the interview, because I lived too far away, that it wouldn't be a good fit. And I was only like, I think it was in Hamilton. It was in Hamilton, and I live in St. Catharines, so it's really only like a 40-minute drive. He's like, yeah, longevity, this isn't gonna work. And then like, but had I made it beyond that, it would have been an in-person interview, and then they would have talked to my references afterwards. So it was like a 4-step process, but didn't make it past step 2 because I lived too far away. I'm like, okay, cool.
That wasn't going to be a match for you anyway. If someone makes a judgment call before they really know you,
yeah,
you got to let that one go.
I'm actually surprised that they would even say something like that. Like, that's borderline like a legal questioning and associated with an interview. Like, that's really strange.
Yeah, it was also like the last question that he asked me in that interview, and I'm like, cool, thanks.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Tells you everything you need to know.
Yeah, and I think they were only offering, he told me, because I didn't have any clinical experience, even though technically I do because of my master's, that I would be starting at $17 an hour.
Like, so 8 months just never happened? 8
yeah,
months? And
right.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. Yeah. All right, well, just because I wasn't paid for it, great, cool.
Right, it doesn't count.
How do you offer a master's student $18?
17, but yeah.
It makes no sense to me. Like, your level of education is just as high as, sorry about that, your level of education is just as high as this physio's at this point.
Yeah. So that's been my life for the last like 6 weeks.
Oh, wow. I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Appreciate it. Appreciate it.
Okay, we got to stick together.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
And you know what is going to work is what we've been chattering about in the group, is that if every single kinesiologist has a base that they will not go below, people need kins, they're going to pay the $35 an hour. If they are looking for PTAs, they'll hire a PTA. So, that's the option. And people do need kins because PTAs have a limited scope of practice. So they can't hire you as a PTA and then conveniently use your scope of practice and your license.
And my registration number.
And your registration number on their invoices.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. And the other thing I wanted to mention is they can't ignore your registration number. So if you're working for someone as a PTA or as a personal trainer, you still have to have your registration number on their invoices. So they can't just decide what to call you conveniently because they don't need you as an RKIN. They need you as a PTA or a personal trainer. The registration number has to go on the invoices because the client needs to understand that they're paying for a registered healthcare professional to provide care to them. So that would be something I'd make sure to check.
And yeah, that's something you might want to bring up with people as well, right? Because under the legislation, just by nature of you interacting with clients in a certain way, they're patients at this moment in time, right? Even if you're just offering advice to somebody under the guidelines for a lot of the legislation, that classifies them as being your patient now because you're regulated. So yeah,
Yep.
should be paying you for appropriately.
Yeah, exactly. You need to make sure that you're charting your interactions with the clients too. So even though you are consulting with a chiro client or a physio client, any interaction, you do need to note what happened during that interaction. So you need access to clients' charts to make that notation. You can't delegate. You could delegate the record keeping to someone else, but you have to make sure that they are documenting that you worked with them and this is what happened. That you're signing off on that record. You have to review it and sign it. So if you're in a
My
whole
book recommendation, I just started reading it, is Never Split the Difference.
Yes,
and it's actually really good. I'm loving the mind games it's teaching. I love it.
Yeah. That's the one written by the Navy SEAL.
Former FBI, yeah.
Oh, FBI, yeah. Yeah, it's good. It's really, really good. And you get the gist if you search podcasts, because he's been on a lot of podcasts. So it's really interesting to hear him talk about that. And so what he often talks about is leaving money on the table, which is an error that a lot of people make. So making sure that you understand, this is the other part of what we wanted to talk about tonight, making sure that you understand your full compensation. Have you negotiated for continuing education credits and benefits? Have you negotiated every little part of your benefits package? Have you asked for more vacation pay, more personal days, a gym membership, a car expense allowance? Those are things that you need to be writing in a list to say, well, your offer is a little light, but here are some things that I think would help me make my decision. So you haven't made a decision yet, but will they step forward and meet you with some of these other things? And that might make a difference for you. Do they have access to childcare where you are? Do they have a dog walking service that you can use? Do they, you just think of everything that would be helpful for your life and making sure that you show up for work every day. So you're looking at your list of healthcare providers in your benefits package. And maybe you want kinesiologists in there because you want to hire a kinesiologist to help you with an Olympic weightlifting program. So you need to go to a special kin that has experience with Olympic weightlifting. And so you want to make sure that the company has benefits for you so you can pay your kinesiologist to help you with weightlifting, or your yoga program, or your Pilates routine, or your Tai Chi lessons. So those kinds of things would be really good. And then vacation is another one. You can navigate your weeks of vacation, but also add in personal wellness days. You can ask to bump up your dental allowance, your massage therapy, because you want to make sure you get a massage every 3 weeks. You don't have to have an injury, right, Mark, to go in for regular tissue work. No. Probably won't have an injury if you go in for regular tissue work. Maybe you want to hire a nutritionist who can put you on this amazing anti-inflammatory diet that will boost your brain health and your productivity and settle your thyroid down and help you sleep better so you show up for work better every single day. That'll cost you. So you can be really critical about what's there for you. If you're driving into work every day from a distance, that's unpaid time, but maybe they'll contribute a bit toward servicing your vehicle, because you're going to need new tires before you know it. You're going to need brake jobs before you know it. Speaking of someone who's getting their brakes fixed tomorrow. So these are things you have to think about, as the wear and tear on your schedule and on your life and the people that you live with, and what they're going to have to manage. Maybe you hire a nutritionist who makes meals for you and drops them off twice a week. It could be money in your benefits plan for that. I've done that. That's awesome. So I think the more creative you can be, first of all, they realize they're not talking with someone who is inexperienced. You have some life experience, you have some negotiating chops, you won't be pushed around, you expect to be treated professionally and fairly, and you just want them to meet you where you're at, because you want this to work. It's going to be a great relationship. But if you start off at the beginning of the relationship not disclosing and not having clear conversations and communication, it's harder to bring it up later from someone who knows. So when would you expect raises if you worked in a full-time employment situation? That might also be something that goes in your agreement with them. So maybe you want a review at 1 month, at 3 months, at 6 months. And maybe you'd like to tie that to changes in any type of compensation. It doesn't have to be monetary. Maybe you've been with them for 6 months and there's this really great course you want to take. Will they pay for it for you? Because you've demonstrated your skill, and you say, look, I can offer these services, but I need this course of Mark's. I really need to learn cupping, because if I can do that for you, I can help to boost your income. Any questions so far?
Just absorbing.
So I think that's the biggest thing to remember, is that it's a two-way negotiation. You're not going to them hat in hand. You're both sitting there taking your hats off, going, okay, right, let's figure this out. It's a meeting. It's not an intimidation session where they make you feel this big and push you out the door because you have to drive to work every day.
It's just I don't know if you guys have ever felt this, but like, especially like me being a new grad, like I have a little bit, like I can take a little bit of time to like job hunt and whatnot, because I can, like I have a little bit of money to like to give myself that time. But I like, even now, like I've only been job hunting for maybe like 6 weeks, and I'm already feeling like, okay, like I need something to come along soon. So like all of this stuff is resonating with me, but at the same time I have this like timeline in the back of my head that I'm like, okay, eventually like I actually need a job, like, because like my pocket of money is going to run out soon. So like it's hard to get over that like nagging in the back of your head to then say like all of these things that we've been chatting about, like, okay, yes, I'm this person that has all these things. I don't know. It's been a lot.
Yep. I hear you. Have you defined a hard geographical area where you're looking? Like
I'm
my
hoping to
time is
stay.
30 minutes or?
Yeah, I'm hoping to stay within like 30-40 minutes of where I live. But I think
Yeah.
I've applied to things that are an hour away just because they were on Indeed. I applied.
I would really think about those personal boundaries because they'll come back to bite you. Experience.
I know.
So
I'm sure.
30 minutes-ish is probably, unless you've got Mark's podcast on, then you can drive. I stick those on and just drive to the cottage and I'm like, Mark for 3 hours. It's awesome. Mark and Amanda. So you can think about it two ways. You can think, I can educate myself and listen to podcasts, which are great. And you can listen to audiobooks. So you can use that time as your education time, your thinking time, if you have the bandwidth for that. So as long as you don't have pressures at either end of your day and you can really be productive in that travel time, then that's cool. That's okay. An hour is a lot after the end of a day. But if you've got the lineup of what you're going to do for that hour, you can consume a lot of content and do a lot of thinking. So that might be okay. It might be just fine. So, there's that. And then there's also, are you married to staying in this particular area? Are you thinking, I just need something for now, because if I see an opportunity in Ottawa, or I see something in London, or something in Kitchener, or something that looks really cool in BC, how does that hit you? Maybe you might need to do something like that and say, I want a small town life. I want to have the community in my back pocket, which happens when you hang out in small towns. So you sort of reverse engineer your life, where you think, what's my ultimate living situation? How do I reverse engineer where I want to be and just start planning toward that? And sometimes that's helpful too. I had to make some decisions about moving full-time to Halliburton, where my cottage is. I was offered a really good job up there. I was like, we could live at the cottage on the lake. I would really like to do that. And I can still run my business. I'm really tempted to do that. And then I saw my mate's face and he said, so I'd come up on the weekends? I'm like, you need more time off. Go negotiate with your best friend who's your boss. Make it happen. So, you have to kind of think, where do you want to be, and how portable do you want to be? Do you want to be at one workplace, or do you want to work in a number of workplaces, which could broaden your network, which could be kind of cool? Or do you want the ability to work remotely? I want to be able to work from anywhere in the world. Backpack with my laptop, coming to you from wherever. That's what I want to do. Just waiting for someone to retire so we can do that. You have high-speed internet. Come on, we can work from anywhere. You do not need, He's not there yet. That's okay. Gotta respect that. So think about what you ultimately want to do. I've got one foot out the door and he knows it, and that's fine. But think about whether the big city is for you, and is it this big city, or is it a city in a different country? And That's also something you don't want to push at something that maybe the model doesn't fit what you're looking for. So there's that. I've worked in a tiny, tiny town. Worked in Bancroft for 5 years. They didn't know what a kinesiologist was. I got tons of clients because they're like, I think Angela can fix this. I don't know. That's where I discovered what personal training was in 1998. Client came in and said, I work for Xerox at Young and Finch. And I'm like, great, what are you doing here? And she's like, my cottage is down the road. And she said, I need a personal trainer. I'm like, I don't know what that is. And she said, I'd pay you $65 an hour and you help me with my exercise program. I said, you're on, and bring all your friends. And then we did a group class at my little gym. And I thought, everyone's paying $65 an hour and I'm leading a workout, watching much music on the television for an hour. It's great. So there's opportunities in different areas that sometimes you can't see because you're too close to it. Any other challenging negotiation things that are coming up? Christiane, is there any interesting things in the book that you wanted to chat about? Because that's a really interesting.
It is. Yeah, no, I love it. I love it. I love all the mind games.
Yeah.
One of them is don't be afraid of the word no. And actually, he compared kind of two different scenarios where when people are fundraising, it's like people just want to be like, you know, do you like this thing, this cause? Yes. Oh, like, do you think it could get better? Yes. Do you want to be a part of our organization? Yes. Like, that's the assumption that that's what people will do. But there's this point where like people want to be able to say no. And if you've ever felt that, it's like, yes, yes, yes. And then just at the end, you're just like, no. Whereas he says, don't be afraid of no, actually have them say no early on so that they've kind of gotten that. It's like, okay, no, like I said no. And then you just keep going to get a yes. The other one was using silence. And, you know, if they say something, like, don't feel like you have to fill the void. Because sometimes like in sheer kind of like there is just this need to be like, oh shoot, like they're not saying anything, so like and then the person starts like thinking and they might even start backtracking. So yeah, it's been really interesting. And even just like he talks about you know, the difference between negotiating, you know, hostages and job promotions and that sort of thing. Like there's a lot of similarities in it all. And I thought it was kind of, yeah, it's been really good. It's really good so far. I'm like a quarter of the way in, so.
Yeah, it's really good. That's a really powerful thing. The silence is really powerful.
Yeah, I've seen it. I've been using it kind of at work too. Like I get like phone calls from like angry family members. I just let them tire themselves out. And they'll just be like, well, I think like, blah, 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 blah. And I'm just like, okay. I'm just like sitting there. It's like, okay, well, here's what I can do. As the angry, here's what I can do. And then just at some point, they just tire themselves out because they realize that like, I'm not budging. And I was like, this is what I can do. I can't do anything more. And then they just kind of tire themselves out. It's like, okay, well, okay, sure. And then they take your offer just because they know it's the only thing on the table.
That's a great question. The other comeback is, how can I help you? After they've exhausted themselves, what do you need? What are you looking for?
Mm-hmm.
And you might go, it's so easy to deliver. Of course I can do that for you.
Yeah. Another mind trick I've been trying to work on is every time somebody calls in angry, at the end, I'm trying so hard for them to end the conversation with thank you.
Oh, nice.
That's been my goal. So far I've been pretty good. It's like sometimes they're just really stubborn and others like, okay, fine. And then they just hang up. I was like, okay. But yeah, I've managed to get like a couple of thank yous because they realize there's like, okay, there's only so much we can do. And I am trying to like do as much as I can. And then I make them aware that it's like, I am doing you a favor. I obviously over exaggerate the favor, but I'm just like, I am trying to help. Versus like, I think a lot of times, again, long-term care, they're just like, oh, you guys aren't doing anything. You're just sitting there. And I'm just like, you think the team's not doing anything? Like, are they not feeding your loved one? Are they not doing, well, no, they're not doing nothing, but so you just kind of get them to backpedal. So kind of using his book, using MI, motivational interviewing, and all of my like psychology background has helped.
You're getting some pretty good on the job training and negotiation, aren't you?
For sure.
Yeah, that's really good. That's really good. Have you used the silence thing when clients want to renegotiate their appointment time? So I was thinking that we could move from like Mondays at 2 to maybe like Tuesdays at 9. But it's okay if you don't have that time available. Well, actually, this time is fine. I can make it work.
Yeah. Or like another thing I do at work is like a lot of times like people ask me for favors, and then I was like, okay, sure, but can you help me with this? Like it can be like the smallest little thing. Like once somebody asked me to reprint like forms, because some of this, I think people had filled out the wrong forms, so they just asked me to basically transcribe it onto the new form. And then I was like, okay, sure. Can you just sign off on such and such? And then it was small, but I think like in their heads they're like, okay, if I ask you for something, there's something in exchange.
Nice. Yep. Mm-hmm. Pretty good. Pretty good. Jillian, Catherine, any questions coming up for you? You're rolling up your sleeves. You're going to work tomorrow.
I don't have a question, but Julie, I just think it's awesome you're getting so many interviews so soon into your job searching process.
Right?
I was like applying to jobs for like months before I even started getting interviews. So I think you have to like see that as a positive thing as well. It's hard to be rejected like over and over, but it's all part of the process. So
Thank you. Appreciate that. It's
Yeah.
it's sometimes hard to see it as a positive because like you keep getting the no's, but you're getting contacted, so it's positive.
yeah.
Just think no as not now.
Yeah, it's not yet.
Yeah. Or like that one clinic that said you live too far away was probably not going to be a good work environment anyway.
I don't know. To me, that seems like a red flag. It's like, do you expect me to just at the drop of a hat show up? I feel like that's what they're looking for.
Then that, yeah.
Yeah, you're not available enough. So.
I got a weird vibe from him.
Yeah, honestly, follow your instincts. Another book I read, Blink by Malcolm Gladwell. That was also really good. So it's just follow your instincts, and like a lot of times in my like job history, it's just like the times where it's like I walked in and I was like, there's something off.
Mm-hmm.
And I didn't follow it. I was like, oh, I really should have listened to myself.
You know what we learned in nutrition school? That if you don't look after your gut health, you can't make good decisions.
True.
If your gut health feeds your brain. So
that's true on like an actual like gut to brain level and like image.
Yeah, exactly. That intuition is not going to work unless you take care of the belly. Jillian, how are you doing? Are you okay? Can we help you with anything?
No, I'm good.
Or,
yeah, I think I'm at the point at my clinic where they have me doing kind of like physio assistant as well as kin, and I've been fighting for more kin, and it's not happening the way I would like it to be happening. So I have been looking for other positions for sure. I just don't feel like I'm getting what I need where I'm at right now.
Yeah, it's tough to jump ship, but jumping early and often in those early years is a good idea.
Mm-hmm. I'm finding it difficult to find positions in my area. I feel like there's a lot more opportunity towards Toronto area, even like Cambridge, Hamilton, that way. But just where I'm at, I'm not really seeing what I want.
I guess you're almost between London and Hamilton and Cambridge.
Yeah, London for me, South London would be a 20-minute drive. So even something in London would be ideal, but I'm just not seeing the type of job that I want.
What about online? Any online offers, especially now?
Yeah, that's something that I should look into a little bit more. I haven't seen anything.
You can always promote the option, put forward the option to an employer that you could do this online. And even working, doing something very part-time online for an employer could be a nice way of bringing in different streams of revenue.
Yeah, I have been looking at doing something part-time, whether it's more of the fitness side of things versus rehabilitation. Just doing something that makes me feel like I'm working towards what I want.
Exactly. Yep. It takes a while. You can always play with different things and pitch the idea or bring something old back out, dust it off, and give it a try. Well, thank you for this conversation. And another interesting Monday night.
Thank you all for being here. I had a lot of fun.
All right, everybody, enjoy the week. We've got Igor Klibanov coming up next week. He's going to be giving away a book. He's going to be talking about courses for people with chronic diseases. And it should be an interesting discussion. He's a pretty prolific writer. He must write through the night. I don't know how he does it, but
that man reads so many books and does so many things. But yeah,
it's incredible. All right, thanks everyone. See you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.